thank you to the leadership and members of the Planning and Development Committee for the opportunity to testify. My name is Erin Boggs, and I'm the Executive Director of Open Communities Alliance, a civil rights nonprofit that promotes equitable access to housing across the state. I'm here to testify in support of 6611, an act concerning needs assessment and other policies regarding affordable housing and development. This proposal is modeled on an effective system in New Jersey and asks every town in Connecticut to plan and zone for its fair share of affordable housing. The fair share approach to planning and zoning is the right thing to do to address a range of social justice issues in Connecticut. It's also the smart thing to do to boost our economy and put our state on a more sustainable path. Fair share planning and zoning is the right thing to do because it addresses poverty concentration and empowers individual housing choice in one of the most unaffordable and segregated states in the nation. It's the smart thing to do because it will provide a tremendous economic boost for the state, as Mr. Giffen discussed. And I'm going to just talk a little bit about how it works. Very simply, the fair share approach generates an estimate of the need for affordable housing, as was discussed, and then allocates that out fairly to regions and then towns based on per capita median income, town wealth in the form of its grand list, multifamily housing percentage, and poverty rate. Towns with greater means and less of a track record of contributing to a solution are asked to do more. Towns with high rates of poverty, 20% or greater, are excluded. Towns are then asked to plan and zone to achieve their fair share allocation in 10 years. And we've heard a lot today from many members of the committee about how that kind of planning is what they want to be doing at the town level. Towns can ask to certify their plan and gain a safe harbor. If need be for infrastructure or natural resource protection reasons, they can get an adjustment to their time frame or allocations. Towns can also simply file their plan with the state, knowing it could be challenged, but they'll be in great shape if they have a solid plan. Towns that do not make a plan are subject to certain enforcement provisions. This is the right thing to do because in one fell swoop, it allows Connecticut to address its affordable housing and housing segregation crises and jumpstarts our economy, all while ensuring that towns remain in the planning and zoning driver's seat. Thanks for this opportunity to testify. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Ms. Boggs. I really appreciate your testimony and your patience for staying with us through so much of this conversation today. Are there questions from members of the committee? Representative Dubitsky.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Boggs, for coming in. Mr. Giffen told us about all these wonderful things that would happen should this formula be imposed on the towns of this state. And he, like you, pointed to New Jersey, and his definition of success when I asked him was that New Jersey, that a little over half of the towns in New Jersey were on track to develop a considerable amount of affordable housing. But he didn't mention any of the other benefits that he said would accompany imposing this formula, such as increased economic activity, increased tax revenues, and increased jobs and things like that. Can you tell me that those things accompanied the imposition of the formula in New Jersey?
It's unfortunate that things panned out the way they did, because we had two excellent experts from New Jersey waiting around basically all day to testify about this, along with Majority Leader Rojas, and they are no longer available. But the bottom line is outcomes in New Jersey have been fantastic. New Jersey is economically booming. Places in New Jersey that have not been diverse or have become more diverse. It's been an incredible boom for New Jersey, and it's the kind of economic picture that I think we'd really like to see in Connecticut. It will help us really staunch this out migration that we're seeing. That is not a positive thing. That's not what we want to be doing as a state. We want to be growing. And I think it's a fantastic model that is going to be incredibly helpful for the state.
And you attribute New Jersey's economic growth to this policy?
At least a portion of it, yes.
When did New Jersey impose this policy?
Well, the fortunate thing for us is that the New Jersey model has been developed over a long period of time. So the effort to do this in New Jersey started 50 years ago. So we've been able to see what worked there and what didn't work there. And they've had a system that has, operated in fits and starts. And, the period most recently when it's been most effective has been since 2015. So we've gotten to see lots of improvements even over the last, 5 or 6 years.
How long will it be before if the Connecticut legislature puts through this proposal this year, how long will it be before we see all these fabulous benefits?
I think we should see some of them as soon as the bill starts. So I believe in the bill. The towns don't have to really start working on this for 2 years. And so starting at that point, even within the first year, as soon as units get built, we're going to start to see, reap the benefits of it. And it's set on a 10-year time frame. So we should see these full benefits within that 10-year period.
Okay, so we should see all this increased economic activity, increased property taxes, increased prosperity and job growth and all that within 10 years?
Yes.
Okay, and if we don't, should we repeal it?
It depends if it's working in other ways. Sure. Any policy that is put out there should be assessed and evaluated and to see what's working and what's not working. I think that's true with any policy that is passed by the legislature.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Dubitsky. Are there questions from other members of the committee? Seeing none, I want to thank you, Rep. Elliott and Ms. Boggs.
Representative
Senator Champagne just put up his hand.
Oh, thank you. I'm toggling between screens. Rep. Elliott, thanks for the assist right there. Senator Champagne.
Sorry about that. I was a little late on that. Just a quick question. Do you have any idea, Ms. Boggs, what the cost to each town will be for this plan?
I think what we would see is actually income coming into towns in the form of, additional local revenue based on more people spending money in the local market, property taxes, and those kinds of additional income growth streams.
Okay. But how about costs to get this set up with the plans to, I don't know who's going to be paying for all this data that needs to be collected and submitting these plans to the state every 5 years. Is there a cost?
Already there. Sorry.
Go ahead. I'm just wondering, is there cost for setup on this? I mean, what's going on with the initial setups on this?
I think it can be paired with existing obligations. So there's obviously the plan of conservation and development, and there's the affordable housing plan that is going to kick in very shortly for towns. Lots of towns are already doing all kinds of plans on their own anyway, just to be responsible. So I think this could fit in with a whole lot of existing planning obligations that are already in place.
And if we don't meet the obligations on the timeline for the states, because there's no interest, especially in some of the small towns, is the town still going to face fines or anything like that?
Well, just like any kind of awesome responsibility, the zoning responsibility needs to come with some guidelines. And if someone is really, a town is really not following those guidelines, there should be some enforcement, just like a traffic cop or a stop sign.
No, I'm talking if
If
we
you
are
have a drunk,
following.
if you have a drunk driver, you probably don't want them on the road.
Okay.
So there is an enforcement mechanism that
Nope.
exists if towns don't have a plan that is functioning. So
Okay.
if towns
We put
do,
hold on. I only have a couple minutes, but I think you're missing what I'm saying. We put the plan into place. We put it out there. No developers come along. Then what do we do?
I mean, there's all kinds of things that can be done. One is you can go to a court and say we're trying and it's not working, but you have to show that you're trying.
So we
you
have to spend
show
money.
that you have to show that you've reached out to developers, that you've zoned land for this kind of housing. And the way it works in New Jersey is if those steps are taken, and a number of other steps that, we can talk about what's effective, that developers will come and the housing will get built.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Champagne. Representative Delnicki to be followed by Representative Lamar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to run a couple numbers by you, Erin, because while you were talking about New Jersey, I actually went and checked on US News website, and New Jersey ranked 33 out of 50 states. Actually, Connecticut ranked higher, in better shape. And when it came to the property tax burden, New Jersey ranked 7th with a higher property tax burden than Connecticut. How do you square that?
Well, I think there are lots of elements to the U.S. News and World Report ranking, so I'd be interested to maybe look at those together with you. But if, there are lots of other indicators pointing to New Jersey's success over the recent years, and if they have some taxes that are actually higher, I think they've decided that they can make those work and use them to provide services to people in the state, and it hasn't caused problems in terms of attracting businesses.
Well, the numbers just don't square, and I bring that to everyone's attention. It's worth taking a look at it, and I suspect I can look up some more data that will probably tell even more about New Jersey versus Connecticut. So again, thank you for your testimony here, and quite frankly, it's worth a look to see where we rate versus New Jersey. Thank you.
Well, and when we get a chance to have our New Jersey experts, we can check in with them and also try to get you information from them on sort of the local assessments that they're seeing.
Well, one quick comment as a follow-up. I prefer to find basically neutral data, and I would think that US News would be neutral data because they're just putting the facts out there. Just my thought. Thank you.
Yeah, no, we had an op-ed in the paper the other day, and I cited some of the US News data as well. So that's why I know there are lots of different cuts of it. So I just look forward to a continued conversation with you about that.
Thank you, Representative Delnicki. And I do appreciate understanding what's behind the math. I think that's really important whenever we cite data. And I appreciate, Ms. Boggs, your willingness to do that. Representative Lamar.
Thank you, Chairwoman. And I really appreciate the outstanding work that you've done today, Ms. Boggs. And I'm sad that the folks from New Jersey weren't here for the 9th hour of this public testimony, because I did have a number of questions, and I assume you can connect us with those individuals if we're serious about trying to understand the proposals in more depth. And particularly, I want to talk about this nexus between, a number of my colleagues have called out the nexus between zoning and fair share and racial justice and desegregating our communities, and questioning whether there is a nexus at all. And I felt like the folks from New Jersey would be able to clearly articulate the considerations they put in that regard under the consideration of their legislation and ultimately their order. So if you can, and I hate putting you on the spot to go into New Jersey specifics when we had those experts available to us earlier, but if you could go further into that, I would really appreciate it.
Sure. I actually can go into that using Connecticut examples. I think, part of the question, I think there are two pieces to this question. One is, are there moderate or lower income families who are Black and Latino who are interested in other housing choices? And the answer is, in Connecticut, absolutely yes. Lots of families who are living in cities right now want to stay there. So there's a great need to make sure that our cities are strong. But there are lots of families, and in the sort of surveys that we've done, it's probably around half lower income families want other choices. So number one, are there people who want these choices? Yes. Number two, if the choices are made available, will families move? And I can tell you from experiences of other housing, fair housing advocates all around the country that the experience generally is yes, but I can also, that the answer generally is yes, but I can also tell you based on developments that have managed to be built, and sometimes with a lot of litigation involved, in places like Avon, Fairfield, Oxford, Westport, Farmington, and Berlin, when housing that's affordable was built, it was occupied by a whole diversity of people, including lots of low-income Black and Latino families. So there's no question in my mind that this will work, and that it's working all over the place, all across the country. It's just a matter of whether we're ready to do it.
Thank you, Ms. West, for your testimony. And I really do appreciate the seriousness with which you've approached this issue over the last number of years. And I will be hoping to talk to folks from New Jersey with you in the next few weeks and trying to understand their challenges and how they confronted them more concretely. And I hope other members of the committee take me up on that as well. Thank you again.
Thank you.